Hi everyone, you'll be pleased to know this is not a video about the furlough scheme for a change and is about the next stage of the pandemic response, which is vaccinations. Two main questions to answer in this video. One, as an employer, can I insist on a vaccine, which we've been asked recently? And two, what should I include in a COVID vaccination policy? So for the first question, there is no simple answer. We are leaning towards the view that only really in exceptional circumstances, once every other option has been exhausted, might you be able to insist that somebody takes up a vaccine or bring someone's employment to an end if they don't take that up. Secondly, with the COVID vaccination policy, I will run through the main provisions that we would include. And on the basis of the answers to the first question, the purpose of the vaccination policy we feel should be more about educating employees about the safety of vaccines, why they're beneficial to them and the country generally, and making arrangements for those who do wish to be vaccinated. So in terms of the risk of insisting on a vaccine, you firstly might have potential discrimination issues. So from a disability perspective, those with suppressed immune systems or other health conditions will be advised not to take up the vaccine. Secondly, for religious or philosophical belief reasons, employees may resist taking up the vaccine, and that again could result in an argument that we are treating individuals less favourably if we put in place blanket provisions that insist on a vaccine being taken up. With unfair dismissal, there is no case law, so there has not been any cases surrounding a refusal to take up a vaccine. Employers, I assume, will not have a contractual provision in place requiring employees to be vaccinated, and I just cannot see this being a conduct issue. So from an unfair dismissal perspective, an employee who is removed may well be bringing a test case against your business if you do decide to dismiss. There are also Human Rights Act considerations, in particular the right to respect for private life, which may be infringed if we start to take decisions which interfere with those rights. So what we would prefer is for businesses to put in place a COVID vaccination policy which really firstly introduces the concept of the business supporting vaccination as far as possible to protect employees and third parties going forwards, and hopefully accelerating our return to some sort of normality in the foreseeable future. That in turn will protect jobs, protect the future of the business, and hopefully give employees some security. We then move on to education. So instead of just simply insisting on taking up the vaccine, we should be giving information on why they're important, the safety of vaccines, the effectiveness, and any risks associated to give a balanced view. And that information, as I'm sure you'll agree, should be from official sources such as the own NHS website. We then importantly give the company's position, so that hopefully being that we encourage all employees to take up the vaccine. And at this point we could introduce what action we may have to take if employees don't take that up. There may be very different implications across the business depending on what sector you're in, the different roles that are performed, the interaction that people have with colleagues and third parties. And those measures might be asking employees to continue to work from home for a time, submitting to regular COVID testing, continuing to comply with any protective measures if you are not vaccinated, such as wearing PPE, amending the way the role's performed, redeployment to a role which contains a lower risk of transmission of the virus, and in extreme circumstances, if all of those options are exhausted, potentially termination of employment. Now we move on to attending for a vaccination. So I think it's important to put into the policy what our position is if employees need to get their vaccine during working time. We don't know the flexibility that employers will have as part of the mass rollout of the vaccine to pick and choose when they attend. So it may be that they need to go during working hours. It would be helpful under the policy to set out whether we offer any sort of paid or unpaid leave for that, remembering the employer will probably have to attend on 2 occasions given the timescales for the vaccine. That paragraph could also include provisions on attending with a dependent, for example, if they need to take an elderly person that depends on them for their care to the vaccine. So again, set out any paid or unpaid leave provisions there. We should have a section simply encouraging dialogue with the employee. So if they do have objections, we really need to try and understand what they are in order that we can not only assess risk in terms of any future action, but hopefully decide on measures which will protect the business, the employees, and any third parties as far as possible. We should state what we're planning to do with third parties. So if you are a business that interacts regularly with other companies' employees or the public, for example, what measures are we going to put in place alongside encouraging the vaccine in order to protect our staff? Are we going to insist that visitors on site are vaccinated? Can we set out less onerous measures, such as, again, a continuing requirement to wear PPE and social distance? We should comment on our risk assessment. We should have put in place a COVID-19 secure risk assessment as part of bringing employees back to work and making our premises as secure as possible. That policy should confirm the commitment to keeping this under review, especially in line with the vaccine and any changes imposed as a result. And we should encourage dialogue again with employees to feedback with any changes they might want to the risk assessment. And then finally, I would include a section on data protection, because we ideally will want to know who has and who has not taken up the opportunity to be vaccinated. So that will inform our business decisions. The collection of that data does amount to special category data under the Data Protection Act and GDPR. So we need lawful bases under Article 6 of GDPR, and also more onerously under Article 9. So those bases could include complying with our legal obligations to protect the health and safety of our employees at work, complying with implied contractual obligations to protect health and safety, protecting the vital interests of the employee, and for the purposes of assessing working capacity on health grounds. So just to conclude, we are in the very early stages of the mass vaccination programme. There are many unknowns which should impact on our actions. The fairness of dismissals has not been tested and won't be for some time, so our view is it does present a significant risk to simply impose a blanket requirement for all staff to be vaccinated. We don't know what impact the vaccine will have. The population generally, the proportion of the population taking this up, and what we should therefore do at this stage is adopt a policy which encourages vaccination, considers each refusal individually, and seeks to find that balance to accommodate the wishes of the employee whilst protecting our business as far as possible. Hope you found this useful. Thank you.